Good afternoon, my dear students. Receive a very warm welcome from your international business teacher, Juan Sebastián Delgadillo. I'm going to talk about integration, economic integration, and culture in business today. I'm going to do my video lesson, part English, part Spanish. And as you can understand, this is a process that involves the bilingualism, yes, of our career in business management. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'm going to start sharing my presentation for today. So, today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about economic integration and culture and business, which are two main important facts when doing international business. As you may have read on the module documents that we have prepared for you, um, uh, culture is a vital part of making business abroad. And by abroad, I mean in different countries and in different cities as well. Why is that? Because the way we perceive others and the way we perceive culture in different environments can change the course of what business is about and can change the course of business in general. It can completely make or break your businesses, your deals, in everything you have in mind as a business manager. So, taking that into account, we're going to start by analyzing what parts of culture in different parts of the world are important and what parts of the economic integration are also vital in terms of the agreements that are made between countries and the agreements that exist in this moment in time. So, the objective of our video lesson today is to identify the fundamental aspects of economic integration agreements and culture in business. First of all, we're going to do a brief course revision, and we're going to start by looking at the handouts or assignments that you have pending that are due in the near future. What tips I can give you for you guys making a really good job and making the most of the course. Then we're going to talk about the economic integration agreements and about culture as the final part of our video lesson in international business and culture in different countries independently as well. So before we start talking about the contents of our video lesson, I'm going to go to our course. In our course, International Business, we have to wait for a little while because our connectivity is a little bit slow and we have to be patient for it. But for now, let's go to international business. I left you um, an article which I found very interesting, and it talks about the new world of agile, fast, quick marketing, which is done by or which is done through the different channels, communication channels that we can find on internet. Internet and technology has been growing steadily and absurdly over the past years. Therefore, the word or the new world of agile marketing is constantly growing. So I highly recommend you guys read it. and any questions you have regarding the article, I will be happy to answer them. If you can direct them through an email, as you can already know that we direct our questions through the email or through our landline or through my Skype session, which is Juan Sebastián 018 or Juan Sebastián 018, sorry. Now, um, if we head to our activities, the first activity that we have today, right? So sorry for the interruption. There was a little misunderstanding here in our professor's lounge. Now we're going to we're going to talk about our first activity, which is basic concepts of international business. And basically, what you have to do is identify and do a glossary of 10 of the most important concepts in international business for you. For that, I really recommend you guys use the UMB Online Library database, which is what you can find or which is found on the didactic guide in online UMB database. There you can go to Lehis Comics, where you can find a lot of interesting terms, interesting articles, which can you can use for doing your assignment. Remember to use apostille quotation as the part of a bibliography section, an introduction, an index, and please try to be very creative while exposing these terms that I've been talking to you about. Um, Now, this activity has its deadline date on Monday, March 26th, 2018, which is in a couple days. So I highly recommend you start doing this assignment as soon as possible. Even though I find it pretty straightforward, pretty simple, it's just on terms. Please try to use your own words. Remember that it is not mandatory to use English in your assignment. And if you have any question, you can direct them to me. I'll answer your questions until tomorrow noon, tomorrow, March 24th, 2018. Um, After that, remember that I'll be in touch with you again until Monday, March 26th, 8 a.m., which will be the deadline date. So please try to take your questions before that so I can answer them. Um, Now, after seeing that, we can go to our presentation, which is on the first subject that we're going to talk about is economic integration agreements, which are concepts and definitions, and which economic integrations agreements we can find. So, concepts and definitions. Which economic integration agreements can we find? Well, there are different. First, we have to define what an economic integration agreement is. An economic integration agreement is an agreement that is made between two or more countries in which free trade or trade that is with different benefits that includes different benefits is made or are made, and those countries are both benefited equally by doing these agreements. For example, Colombia, we have the TLC, which was signed with the United States of America, one of our main um, commercial associates as well as Venezuela, Ecuador, and other countries in South America. Economic integrations agreements can be somewhat of a very difficult and touchy, if you will, subject because it allows ginormous companies to enter our country, and you could say that it abolishes um, companies and farmers that don't have the financial muscle needed to compete. However, it also brings an opportunity to enter new and bigger markets. The United States of America has over 400 million people, and that's a huge market which we can explore. So therefore, there are positives and negatives in international integration and economic integration agreements. So, but that's basically it. That's basically it. But as a concept and definition, uh, an economic integration agreement refers broadly to, well, basically, it refers to one of the main policy sources of trade cost changes in the formation of an economic integration agreement, which potentially affects an importing or exporting country's welfare or well-being. Um, that's basically it. And all over the world, we can find different types of economic integration agreements, which are which have been taking place, which are in place, and which that no longer exist. But by definition, economic integration is the unification of economic policies between different states or countries through the partial or full abolition of tariff and non tariff restrictions on trade taking place among them prior to their integration. This is meant in turn to lead to lower prices for distributors and consumers with the goal of increasing the level of welfare in companies and public in general, etc., while leading to an increase of economic productivity of the states or countries that we're talking about. The trade simulation effects intended by means of economic integration are part of a contemporary economic theory of the second best, where, in theory, the best option is free trade with free competition and no trade barriers whatsoever. That's specifically what I was talking about when I said that there are parts of the population that are affected when inter- international integration agreements are taken in place. For example, Colombia. Free trade is treated as an idealistic option, and although realized within certain developed states, economic integration has been thought of as the second best option for global trade where barriers to full free trade exist. Um, there are many different organizations that have economic integration agreements. With economics crisis that started in 2008 or 2008, the global economy has started to realize quite a few initiatives on regional level. It is unification between the European Union and the United States of America, expansion of Europe and Asian Economic Community, now known as Eurasia Economic Union, by Armenia and Kyrgyzstan. It is also the creation of BRICS, that is an economic term, BRICS, which is made of Brazil, Russia, India, and other countries, with the Bank of its members, a notably high motivation of creating competitive economic structures within Shanghai Organization, also creating the bank with many multi-currency instruments applied. The engines for such fast and dramatic changes was insufficiency of global capital, while one has to mention obvious large political discrepancies or differences witnessed in 2014 and 2015. Global economy has to overcome this by easing the moves of capital and labor. While this is impossible unless the states will find common points of view in resolving cultural and political differences which pushed us so far as of now. It is a term directly involved with globalization. Globalization refers to the increasing global relationships of culture, people, and economic activity. So, when we talk about international trade agreements, we can find different international trade agreements within the world. Okay, so which one are there? We have vast number of international trade agreements between countries, which are, as I'm going to mention, as follows. The first ones that were created were the GATT, or the General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade, which was made after the World War II and quickly became the world's most important multilateral trade agreement. The major countries of the world set up the GATT in reaction to the waves of protectionism. Protectionism is a term that is used by countries to protect their own industry that crippled or damaged or harmed world trade during the Great Depression of the 1930s. In successive negotiation or negotiating rounds, the GATT substantially reduced the tariff barriers on manufactured goods or products in the industrial countries. It began in 1947 and it has evolved ever since. Another international agreement was the WTO, or is the WTO, which is the World Trade Agreement, and it was the evolution of the GATT, which now has more than 140 members in countries. The World Trade Organization oversees or looks for four international trade agreements: the GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Services, which is the GATS, and agreements on trade-related intellectual property rights and trade-related investments, which are TRIPS and TRIMS, respectively. The WTO is now the forum for members to negotiate reduction in trade barriers. The most recent forums in the Doha Development Round launched in 2001. Okay. Since then, there have been different agreements with countries as Japan and continents as Africa and South America. But we have to talk about the NAFTA. NAFTA is another international agreement, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement. Uh, and it went into effect in January 1994. Under the terms of NAFTA, the United States, Canada, and Mexico agreed to phase out or take out all tariffs on merchandise trade and to reduce restrictions in trade and services and foreign investment over a decade. Um, those are like the most important trade agreements found in the world at the moment. However, we also have agreements that depend on economic and monetary union, an economic union, on customs and monetary union, on common market, on customs union, and on multilateral free trade areas. Uh, Between those, we have CSME, EC, EU, Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and CHF. These are the acronyms for them, so I suggest you guys investigate and search about them. The Economic Union, we have CSME, the EU, the EAEU, Mercosur, GCC, SICA, Customs and Monetary Union, which we have CEMAC, XAF, UEMOA, XOF. Common Market, which we have EEA with Switzerland and ASEAN. Customs Union, which we have CAN, EAC, EUCU, SACU. Multilateral Free Trade Area, which we have CEFTA, CISFTA, COMESA, EFTA, GAFTA, NAFTA, SAFTA, AANZ, FTA, PAFTA, CAD, CFTA. Um, There are a variety of trade agreements, with some being quite complex, the European Union, while others are less intensive, which are the North American Free Trade Agreement or NAFTA. Okay, there are a lot of conditions, agreements, and so on. So I'm not going to stop here and explain each one of them. I want you to investigate and research on them. Okay. However, any questions you have regarding those, you can email me or you can contact me whenever you like. Remember that I will answer you for our first handout or assignment until tomorrow, Saturday noon. Okay. However, our presentation has a lot of them on Africa, on America, on Europe, and others. Culture. Now we're gonna talk about culture in international business. We have a very interesting quote by Talmud Bavli, which was from an ancient wisdom text from Babylon. I'm gonna read it in Spanish. Nosotros no vemos las cosas como ellas son, vemos las cosas como nosotros somos. That speaks for itself. Culture in international business has to be uh, how people see us and how people see business and not how we see business, because we have different culture, different backgrounds, and other people have completely different culture and backgrounds, which may result in negative outcomes. Now, how do we acquire culture? Our first term, our first bullet point in this presentation. Well, we acquire culture by different factors. We acquire culture by family, we acquire culture by our country, by our friends, by our relatives, and it's something that is intricate in our ways of living. There are ways of living that are different here in South America, in America, in Central America, and in Europe and Asia, in the Western Hemisphere, and in the Eastern Hemisphere. The power of culture is huge. It's important, and it can literally derail businesses if not held correctly, because culture, if misinterpreted, can be a weapon, a weapon for destruction. It can be a weapon to neutralize all advances, all positive advances, and it can be used to destroy businesses. So the power of culture is huge. On the other hand, if we use the culture correctly, then we can access business in a better way, and we can close our businesses properly, and we can also make future and overlasting relationships with time, commercial relationships especially. The relevance of these cultural factors is what I just said. It's taking them into account, and it's making the most of them so we can have a positive cultural and business relationships. So, culture in international business. We have social structures, we have ethical and religious systems, and we have different determinants in culture. And that's about it in culture. One last thing I have to say is that picture this. In Colombia, we have different regions, we have different cities, we have different people. Someone from other country might say that all Colombians are the same, and we as Colombians can say that that is not true at all. So, if in a same country as Colombia, in one country as Colombia, we have such different cultures, such different ways of doing things, you can't even imagine how it changes between countries that are in the same continent or in different continents. So we have to take that into account when becoming international business managers. For now, that was our video lesson. I hope this is useful for your first activity, and we'll keep in touch. Remember that you can write to me from our online and platform email account. You can also contact me through Skype, which is Juan Sebastián 018, and you can also call me to the landline, which is 546 0600. The extension is 1321. That's 1321. So thank you very much for paying attention. If you have any doubts regarding our video lesson, please let me know. I'd like to hear your comments, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you very, very much.